BC Cup.
Nothing is enough for Collingwood. Centennial Cup champions in 2024.
What's going on, everybody? This is the OJHL All Access podcast, and it is a festive occasion, as you can see from Ron Valentine's lovely. Show us, Ron. The lovely Santa hat there. Yeah, looking good. But welcome, everyone. We talked about doing this over the last couple of weeks. This is sort of our mid-season / holiday break show, and I'm so happy to have Ron Valentine, our OJHL fine feature writer, and Alan Corkum from too many different outlets that I don't know. There's too many of them now. It was CHCH. Now we've still got Kojiko, Your TV, right? And Raiders as well, of course, after all these years. So, guys, how are things? Fill me in.
Very good, Alex, so far. We're enjoying the lack of snow. Should I say that or not? Some people love it, but...
So you're saying that Santa
kids
has
do, but I do.
Huh?
The kids don't like it, Alan, of course.
No, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
They want snow.
I do.
Well, they'll be happy to know that Santa can do it in any weather. It doesn't matter. He's still going to make it down that chimney. So there we go. But we're going to talk about lots of stuff today, folks. We are going to talk about some of the top players, top teams. Just take stock, basically, of where we are right now as we get into the Christmas break. So saying that, let's take a look first, guys. We'll start off with the top 20 rankings, the most recent ones that just came out, and Trenton leading the way, continuing to lead the way, of course. Pretty cool to see actually Greater Sudbury up there in second spot from the NOJHL. Some Ontario teams other than the OJ getting it done as well. Leamington in fifth. Collingwood comes in at number 10. And we've got JRCs as well at number 17. And Milton picking up an honorable mention as we get into the coaches' power rankings. And I really love how we've got the fact that the coaches are doing this, guys, to get maybe a little bit of a different perspective on it. They've got Trenton 1, they've got the Flyers at number 2, they've got Collingwood at number 3. So that all matches up with the CJHL national rankings. The only thing that's different is they flipped Milton and the JRCs. They've got to the Milton ahead of the JRCs, whereas they were only an honorable mention in the top 20. So always interesting to get the coach's perspective. Halliburton at number 6, the Dukes at number 7, the Canucks at number 8, the Cougars number 9, and St. Mike's at number 10. Thoughts, guys, on both of those? What's your take on the rankings, both the national ones and the OJHL coaches poll? Who wants to take this?
Well, I really like the local rankings that are done by the coaches. It's up to date. It includes just the teams from the OJHL. And I think you mentioned Milton only having an honorable mention. They deserve to be where they are in the coaches' rankings. They're on a real run at the moment and should be there. Nationally, it's good to compare the teams. You have to remember it's basically based on a winning percentage. It is great to see the Sudbury Cubs. Of course, they went to the Centennial Cup last year. It's great to see them ranked in second spot. As a person who had 15 years in Northern Ontario, it's been a long time since the NOJHL team has had that higher ranking, I think, overall. But Milton, I think, is the one difference, and they deserve to be where they are in the coaches' rankings for sure.
For sure. Alan, what's your take?
I agree 100% with Ron. I just saw Milton the other night. I covered a game for Your TV. They played Georgetown and won, and they're making some great moves. They just picked up Justin Dizzotti from the OHL. They picked up some veteran goalie depth and Carter Bickle from the King Rebellion. So they've been on a real heater lately. They're 10-0-2 in their last 12 games. So I would agree that they should be a little bit higher in the rankings, maybe in the top 20 instead of being honorable mention. But if they keep up this hot streak, I think they will keep it up and probably hit the top 20 next week. As for some of the teams in the lower half of this, Niagara Falls might be falling next week because they've had a couple of hard losses over the last week. They fell to Burlington, they fell to Georgetown, and they actually we're taping this actually this afternoon. They lost to Oakville in overtime, a big comeback by the Blades. So a couple of tough losses lately for Niagara Falls, and Burlington is always a wild card. They seem to have a good game or two, and then they'll come back with a game that's a little bit of a head scratcher. So we'll see where they rank next week. But Niagara Falls might take a bit of a tumble, but they still have a great team there, especially led by Parker Forlan and the goaltending Mikhail Kingo.
I was just going to say, though, Parker Forlan has been gone for the last couple of weeks, of course, at the World Junior A Challenge. So you take away one of their top guns like that, obviously, and you expect them to have a bit of problem. But no, I understand your point. Let's take a look at the standings, though, guys. First at the East, let's see where the teams sit at the moment. Trenton on top, of course, followed by the JRCs. Haliburton not that far behind. Well, not that far behind the JRCs, of course. The Golden Hawks have been pulling away. Then it's the Dukes and the Buzzers, the Spirit, Cougars, Pickering, Lindsay, Markham, Aurora, and North York. Whoever wants to take this, but just your overall, when you look at the Eastern Conference, guys, what are your thoughts this season?
Beauty before age, Alan.
Well, you just got to look at the Trenton goal. 17-game winning streak right now. I don't know if anybody's going to be able to catch them the way they're playing, but it's going to be a real fight, I would say, between spots 2 through 6 right now, because you only have about 10 points separating 5 teams. So Junior Canadians are ahead right now, but Haliburton, Wellington, St. Mike's, and Stouffville are all pretty tight right now, and a win here and a win there, and they could be moving up the standings. And it's also going to be a good race for the last couple of playoff spots, because it's pretty tight between Cobourg, Lindsay, and Pickering for the last 2 spots in the conference. So there's going to be a lot of battles in the last couple of months of the regular season, so it's going to be very intriguing to watch these. The only team I think that might stay where they are is Trenton. Everybody else, depending on what happens and what trades they make at the deadline, there might be some movement.
Yeah. Ron, what have you seen?
Well, talking about the playoff battle in the East, in the West, of course, there's 2 teams on the outside looking in right now with King and Oakville. And you more or less have to look at the winning percentage, because different teams have played a varying amount of games.
Yeah.
But they do stand a chance of getting in and perhaps eliminating perhaps teams like Niagara Falls and Georgetown. It all depends on who can get hot at what time. And as Alan was saying, Oakville pulled off an amazing win today, down 4-1 after 1 period. Fallen had a hat trick, and they came flying back. Oakville has a young team, hardly made any changes. Everybody said they were going to finish in the dead end of the pack, and they've been surprising a lot of people. On the other hand, King is a veteran-laden team, which really didn't seem to be going anywhere, and now they have started to move up too. So the whole playoff position in the West is going to be good. You've got to look at Leamington and Collingwood, I think, is 1, 2, and then, as Alan said, from then on, take your pick. It depends who gets on a run.
I know you were a little surprised when we talked last time, Ron, that King is where they are because they got some stars on that team and they have a veteran-laden lineup. Are they a team that you could see making some serious moves before the trade deadline?
I think it really depends on what's going to happen to them for the next 2 or 3 games, whether they think they are much more in contention than the last time we talked. So I don't think the urgency is there for them to make any moves out, anybody being shipped out or anything like that. They've certainly had a lot of players coming in and out. So, yeah. But now I think they're settled down, and you'll see them stay on the upswing, I think.
Let's take a look at the scoring leaders at the moment. And it's gotten interesting. For a while, we thought that Colton Smith was really going to pull away, but he's only 2 points ahead of Fournier right now from Trenton. Teo Artichuk in the conversation as well with 53 points. Parker Forlan. Tell you, if he hadn't missed those couple of weeks at the WJAC, who knows where he might be. He's 8 points behind, but you got to think he'd be right up there with Colton Smith. Yeah. And then David Elmy, great player from St. Mike's as well, to round out your top 5. But looking at that, guys, your thoughts on, we've got a few guys that are in the conversation for possibly hitting 100 points this year. They're going to have to really keep it up down the stretch, but we could see our first since Fukakusa, I guess, a couple of years ago, Ron.
Well, a few games ago, it looked like Colton Smith was going to be a shoe-in for 100 points. And now you look, he's got a couple of empty net goals in his last 2 games. He hasn't featured very much in points. He's got 1.71 goals per game. Fournier, on the other hand, is 1.81. He's got 23 games left, and Smith only has 20. Then, as you said, David Elmy, Artichuk, and Forlan. Forlan is actually third on goals per game, 1.73. So it's not a certainty for anybody to get 100 points, but right now Fournier's on a run, and he would look like, to me, the most obvious choice at this point. Things can change, as you know, but and he's very consistent too. You very rarely see him miss a game where he doesn't get on the score sheet.
Alan, if you were a betting man, would you say anyone's going to hit 100 points this year?
Never say never. I think it's going to be tough as Ross, the games are starting to dwindle down, but I definitely would see a 90-point score. 100 might be a stretch, but you never know because we've seen some games this year that a team has scored 9-10 goals a game. So if Trenton can have a couple of big games like that, or Leamington, you can see Colton Smith or David Forney easily hit 100 points.
Yeah. Let's move to streaks. Ron, that's something that you wanted to cover. Significant streaks this year. Obviously, we've got Trenton, and a pretty big one right now is 17. But we've also had Halliburton, who had, I think, a 12-gamer earlier in the season as well. I mean, I'm probably covering some of the stuff you're going to talk about, but talk about some of those significant streaks, guys, whether it be from teams or from players.
Well, I made a couple of notes, Alex. On October the 18th, St. Mike's beat Trenton 4-3, and that was the last game that Trenton lost in regulation. They've gone 19 in a row since that time. On November the 8th, Buffalo beat the Menace in Milton 4-3. Milton's gone 12 since then without having a regulation loss. Halliburton's won the last 6 or 7. Coburg Cougars have won unbeaten in 5. The Caledon Admirals have gone on a 3-game winning streak, which really shows you that you cannot count anybody out in this league. You talk about, well, they're only playing Caledon or Mississauga or Oakville, whoever it is like that, one of the bottom feeders.
Mississauga beat Leamington.
Work. Exactly.
Mississauga beat Leamington, last week, I guess it was. I mean, you can't count anybody.
Trenton.
Yeah.
That's insane. Yeah. And Mississauga also beat Halliburton County in the first week of the season, I think it was. So although there are some teams that are obviously not going to make the playoffs and are very much mild in the bottom of the standings, I still find it now compared to the way it was 15 years ago, even on any given night, teams can still beat one another, and that definitely was not the case back in the days before contraction, for example, guys, if we go way back, when the league dropped the amount of teams. But yeah, really cool to see. But Ron, those are some really interesting streaks. Alan, did he cover it all? Are there any that really stick out in your mind?
I believe there was one Leamington made as well. I think it was like a 14 or 15 game winning streak that Milton upset them to stop that as well here back in, I think about a month or so ago. So it's been a lot of streaks. And you were talking about some of these teams that are maybe out of the playoff race. They're going to be playing spoiler right now, especially Caledon. They have wins against Milton this year. They beat Burlington recently. They tied Trenton. And these teams have nothing to. They're going to play loose. They have no pressure on them because nobody expects anything from them. Everybody might go in and think, "Oh, here's an easy 2 points," but teams are surprised this year, so you can't.
Yeah, licking their chops, hoping to play spoiler. So
exactly,
no question about it. So let's do, guys, your award winners up to this point in the season. And Ron brought up a really good point when I sort of brought up some categories, because the first one was top rookie. And Ron said we should have one for guys who have played junior, who have junior experience before coming into this league, and for guys who are true freshmen, so to speak, who are really in their first year of junior. So if you guys were to pick an award winner, first of all, for a person who's a true rookie, who would you choose?
Well, I think there's so many top rookies in the league right now. This is a really difficult question. If you look simply at points, Simon Wang from Lindsay, Mason Kim from Mississauga, Callie, as you mentioned, Brody Cook, Tate Collins, and also Georgetown's goalie Michael Newlove. They've all got, they've all got the strong points. I think I would have to right now go with Callie as the outstanding. He's got so many skills. For a 16-year-old, he can bring the fans out of the seats, and he's probably the best of what is actually, I think, a very good rookie crop this year.
Yeah, Alan, how about you?
I would have to agree with Ron Ryder. Callie's probably been the cream of the crop, but there are a lot of great rookies. I get to see 2 of them in Georgetown very frequently, and they've played very well this year. Goalie Michael Newlove. If it wasn't for him, I'd say the Raiders wouldn't be in as many games as they have been this year. He's been a rock. He has a few shutouts, even has a goal this year. So there you go. Another good player that Georgetown has, maybe doesn't get talked about as much, but he's been an important piece in the back end, is 16-year-old defenseman Andrew Robinson. He's an Oakville native.
Unreal.
He's been pretty steady back there for Georgetown as well. So a couple guys to consider, but I think Ryder Callie, as you said, Ron, just is so talented. He's already committed to NCAA hockey. He was already a member of the Canada East team of the World Junior A Challenge. So just an exceptional players, Ryder Kelly. I have to give the nod to him for the true rookie of the year so far.
Okay, so how about the veteran rookie? I have a feeling who you guys are going to say, but who would be your ultimate first-year OJHL player, if you want to call them a rookie? Who would it be?
Well, I think we both have to say Smith for sure. But if you look down the list, just 2 or 3 further down, Noah Garth played Burlington Cougars this year. He played for Welland last year. Matthew Soulier was in Strathroy, Junior B. And Tay Altman from who's just got traded, actually, played for LaSalle last year, who's just got traded from the Flyers. You know, I like Garth. I see him play a lot. He's got a tremendous amount of skill. Born in Germany, only his second junior season in Canada. And he plays with Matthew McMillan, and they make a dynamic duo when they're on the ice. It's difficult for them. They know where they are, and it's difficult for anybody to get the puck from them.
And Alan, are you along the Smith line as well for your guy with experience? Yeah, that's your take on it.
Yeah, Colton Smith has just looked great. Leads the league in points and goals right now.
Yeah,
but
it's
player that Ron said I've seen a few times covering games has been Matthew McMillan for Burlington. He's a first-year player with Burlington. He played up north the last couple of years. He's been very exceptional. He's fitting well. And Burlington have a lot of offensive weapons, including Noah Garth, McMillan, Ryan Gunny. They just brought back another player in I'm trying to think of his name right now.
Tommy Carmeris.
That's it, Carmeris. I was trying to think of it up top of my head. So they got lots of weapons. The only question mark I feel for Burlington might be the goaltending. But we'll see what happens down the stretch. But yeah, there's lots of players in the league that have been exciting in different parts this year.
Well, that's a great segue. Thank you for the goaltender mention, Alan, because that's my next question, guys, and Alan, will start with you on this one. Who would be your top goaltender so far this year?
I think it'd be a tie right now between, I would say, Marcus Vandenberg of Leamington and Noah Tegelar of Collingwood. Tegelar has been an outstanding story. He's a Georgetown native. He's with the Collingwood Blues. Was picked for the World Junior A Challenge. He's already has 5 shutouts. I think he has 11 or 12 wins this year. 5 of them have been shutouts. I got to call one of those in Georgetown. He's been outstanding. He came out of nowhere. He played. His rights were from, I believe, the Blind River Beavers. They acquired him early in the season.
He was the NOJHL Rookie of the Year with Blind River last year, which is interesting because he is from Georgetown. So I guess maybe he couldn't make a local team, and he went to Blind River. Possibly because you've got all these teams in the OJ, but he was only 16 last year as well, right? Very not easy to make, obviously, in the OJHL as a 16-year-old goaltender. Yeah, but he was the Rookie of the Year last year in Blind River. And how much of the WJAC did you guys watch, by the way? Did you get to watch a lot of it? Did you stream any of the games?
I didn't see any of it, unfortunately.
Okay,
I saw some highlights of it, but not really watch any of the games. But it was exciting. I mean, Canada East did very well. They had a hard-fought loss in the semis to the U.S., and as their coach, they just ran out of gas in that bronze medal game, but it was a great effort. Tegelar was outstanding for Canada East. He kept them in the game as well, and all our OJ players represented the league very well. So it was congratulations to them and a great tournament.
I was going to say, so I worked for HN Live as well. I cut the highlights for all the games in the tournament, so I got to watch all the Team Canada. I got to watch all the games, but Tegelar was phenomenal. Dave Dawson is the guy who was calling the games for HN Live. He was losing his voice on some of the saves that Tegelar made, and he was the Team Canada East Player of the Game. Not every game, I don't think, but just about every game. I think there was maybe one game that he wasn't. That's how good he was. So anyway, yes, Alan, he's definitely. It's amazing Collingwood just reload, don't they? I call them Noah's Ark when it comes to goaltending, because we had Noah Pack last year and we got Noah Tegelar this year. But anyway, yeah, no, I agree. He's been phenomenal. Ron, how about you? Who would you say?
I think it's a tie between Marcus Vandenberg and Noah Tegelar. I was going to say that anyway before Alan said it, but the one thing you have to, and Vandenberg leads the lead in shutouts too. I know he played a 1-2 with Altman there, but it's definitely ahead in shutouts. The one thing that other teams have to think about too, and they may say, well, why aren't you considering my goalie? There are a lot of good goalies in this league who do not have the defense of Leamington or Collingwood in front of them.
Yeah.
And their goals against average may be 2.5, 3.5, whatever it happens to be. I remember you talking about Zach Dietz earlier on, and I remember last year for Burlington, for 2 seasons he played for the Cougars, he didn't have a great goals against average. The thing about Zach was when the big save was needed, he would come up with it 9 times out of 10. And you got to look at that sometimes with the goalie. It's not always the goals against or the shutouts. It's what they can do in big game situations.
Bully neighborhood example of that would be New Love in Georgetown. He doesn't have the defense is okay in Georgetown, but not as strong as Lehman DeCarlo. But he's had a great season. I think he's 5th or 6th in stats. So New Love would probably be in consideration because he's a strong goaltender with not as much strong defense as those teams.
But the NHL scouts know this, and they I mean, obviously they had him on the list as a player to watch for the draft this year for a reason, right? And they know the stats don't tell the story about everything, obviously. So, really quickly on the Dietz thing, you both saw him, the emergency call up to the Ottawa Senators the other day, and did you both see the video of him running to the arena when he got the call at the last second? I think it was because there was a traffic jam and he couldn't get there in the car. So anyway, the video of him running across the bridge with his bag, and there's a guy in the car who's recording him, and I guess he doesn't know what's going on, so he's like, what the heck is this guy doing, right? But that was Dietz running to the rink to be a Sens backup that night. Anyway, really, really cool story, Ron, because I know, you know, I featured him when I was doing the OJ Today, doing a story on the Cougars, and I know you've watched him very closely while he was with the Cougars as well. So anyway, really cool stuff. Let's move on to, we've touched on some of the really high-end young players this year. Your top prospect, top pro prospect, and I think there's a few really good ones, as I said. But who would you guys pick for that? Ron, let's start with you.
Top prospects, I narrowed it down to 3. I could have listed 10. One is Mason Kim from Mississauga. One is Brody Cook from Collingwood. But I again went with Cali because I think he has probably the brightest future ahead of him in hockey. And how long he will stay in Milton, who knows? They'd answered that one. But I would have to go with him.
I find it very interesting, Alan, before I get to you, that Cali still is not committed to the OHL. He was drafted by the Sioux first round. They've traded his rights now to North Bay. He is committed to Harvard, but he's not going to Harvard for another, because he's only 16. He won't go for another couple years. So I find it interesting that he hasn't committed to go play for any of the for his OHL team yet that drafted him for next year, or whether it be, I mean, I guess it's tough as an AP though, isn't it? If it's North Bay, that's not exactly right around the corner. But anyway, just, you know, just thinking out loud there. But yeah, Cali's been phenomenal. Alan, are you sticking with Cali as well as your top prospect?
I would have to say yes, because I've seen him the most of all the other players. But Mason Kim has been outstanding. As is Simon Wang, the defensive prospect for the King Rebellion, is also an AP now for the Oshawa Generals of the OHL. And going back to your point about Cali going to North Bay, maybe with this new rule with the CHL and NCAA, maybe it happens next year. Milton will probably hope not, but you never know what could happen now with this new arrangement they have. But back in the day, it was tougher because you weren't allowed to play CHL with the NCAA. Even now with this new agreement, bridges have been made. New bridges have been made, so players are playing. And you can see, unfortunately, the league that's closest to you, where you're coming from, Alex, a lot of players have been leaving there, coming back home because of this new rule.
Absolutely, the grass isn't always greener. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I hope he stays in Milton. It'd be great for the fans. It'd be great for everyone. And if so, it'd be getting drafted, because he will get drafted next year. It would happen directly out of the Menace. But anyway, I just found it interesting that we're seeing so many players in our league now who previously would not have committed to the OHL, but we're seeing double commitments come in, right? We're seeing commitments to both NCAA and OHL being announced at the same time with some of these guys. So anyway, it's fascinating. We'll see what happens with Ryder Cali. Let's move to the big one then. From a individual perspective, who would be your choice for MVP from what you've seen so far?
That's a real tough one. I picked 2 guys from teams that are not in the top 3 in either of their divisions. One we mentioned before was Parker Forlin, who I thought was desperately unlucky not to be one of the original choices for the World Junior A Challenge. He was caught up there, and I think he did well in that. The other one, and he's basically in the same boat, I expected him to be out in Camrose, is David Elmy, the captain of the Buzzers. And I think those two make such a big difference to their teams. It's easy to go with the top teams and say, oh yeah, the top scorer on the top team is an MVP. My choice would be between Fallin and Elmy, and right now I'd have to be leaning a little bit towards Parker Fallin. The way he came, as Alan said, the way he came back today from that tournament and got a hat-trick in the first period, he's really on a roll. Niagara Falls is not doing well, as Andrew mentioned, as Alan mentioned a little while ago, but he's the one that kind of gives them that lift when they need it, and the same for Elmy too.
Alan, how about you?
Well, I mean, these players are definitely choices. Well, I've been thinking it's probably between the top two scorers right now, David Fournier in Trenton and Colton Smith in Leamington. I mean, Smith is just a weapon. He basically carried the team on his back in a shutout win against Georgetown here a couple of weeks back. It was a scoreless game going to third. He scored a power play goal that got the party started for them, and then he ended up winning with a shutout by Vandenberg, and he got the empty netter. So he seems to, when a moment happens that Smith needs to give him a big moment, he takes it, and he got a big goal in that game for Leamington. And wasn't their best game, but they got the 2 points. They got the job done thanks to their leader, Colton Smith.
Yep. And now the big question from all you've seen so far, who is your choice to win the Buckland Cup? Now, we're obviously going to have you guys on again. We're going to revisit this as we go down. But at this point in time, as we get into the break, who is your choice? Who do you think is the most powerful team in the OJHL this season?
At this point in time, I'm boiling it down to the two leaders, Leamington and Trenton. And the reason that at this point I'm going with Leamington is for one basic reason. They've allowed 57 goals in 36 games.
Remarkable.
Trenton has allowed 81 goals in 33 games. Now, that's not necessarily against their defense, which is a strong defense. Perhaps not as strong as Milton's, which I think is the strongest in the league, and they've got 4 or 5 veterans back there. But that's the reason I'm picking the Flyers right now. But a lot can happen between, as you all know, between us sitting here right now and the end of the season. Collingwood is going to be in the mix. There's no question about that. They may be in third, but we could be sitting here at the end at the March the 2nd and looking at them back in first place again. So right. I'm going with the Flyers.
Really quick before I get to Alan, it'd be interesting, Ron, if we start looking at the historical standings to see what would the lowest goal total allowed by a team at the end of the season, because you'd have to think that Leamington right now would be on pace for, if not a record, pretty close to it, because that's phenomenal. That's that's less than 2 goals per game right now. 36 games played and only 57 allowed. So I'd be interested in checking that out later. But Alan, who's your pick?
This is really tough because there's so many great teams right now. But I would say there's 3 that are the cream of the crop right now. That'd be Leamington, Collingwood, and Trenton. And I think right now I'd have to agree with Ron. I have to lean towards Leamington over Trenton in the final, but I think that Leamington-Collingwood conference final, if it happens, would be outstanding. There might not be many goals in that one, even though they have some snipers, but those 2 goalies in Vandenberg and Tegelar will put on a show if it happens that way. But there are other teams that may have something to say about that. The Miltons, the Burlingtons, and also you got maybe even the Patriots might come up a little bit. We'll have to see what happens. But I think right now Leamington I give the edge to over Trenton in the final, but we'll see what happens, what trades are made in the next couple of months, what other teams do. If somebody goes on a losing streak, if unfortunately injuries may happen, we'll have to see what goes on. It's going to be an entertaining couple of months for sure.
And down the stretch, we come. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I think earlier on, Alex, I just traded Brody Cook from Leamington to Collingwood. I think I mentioned that he was playing for Collingwood.
That went right over my head. I missed that one. Actually,
obviously, is with Leamington because he plays online with Colton Smith. So I just wanted
just committed too. Was it Nebraska Omaha for Brody Cook?
Clarkson.
Was he Clarkson as well?
Somebody was Clarkson. I know that.
Colton was Clarkson.
Okay, maybe it was Nebraska.
Okay, you know what? As we do this live on the air, let's find out. We can't just leave this. I mean,
absolutely.
As you know, everyone at home probably knows this. Oh, he has committed to, as I load my page here. Oh, we both got it wrong. It's UMass Amherst.
Oh, UMass, yeah.
UMass Amherst. Okay, so we both got egg in our faces, but hey. So before we go, guys, really quick, and it's funny because it's actually not pitch black where I am, but we're having a very rainy day in Vancouver, and the level of light just dropped like it's hilarious. So I look like kind of look like a ghost here as all the natural light has dropped. But Ron, you wanted to mention January 17th, something very cool coming up.
Yes, I saw a post from the OHA, Alex, that on January the 17th in Oakville at 16 Mile Creek, they're playing the King Rebellion. And for the first time in junior A, and I'm not sure about the rest of professional hockey, they're going to have a four all-female officiating crew. Hillary, Lacey, Laura, and Marlo are going to be four officials from the distaff side who will be officiating that game. And that's January the 17th, King in Oakville.
Fantastic. So when I come back after the break, we'll continue to mention that just to remind people that's great. That's a super milestone. So guys, what are the plans for Christmas before we head out here?
We're not going too far. Get together with relatives, having a kind of a come and go on New Year's. So as you get older, Alex, you don't tend to travel quite as far as you used to.
Alan, how about you?
Hey, my family, my folks are coming up from Nova Scotia for Christmas, and then the family just staying around here for a few days. So it should be great. Hopefully, get to check out a hockey game or two. I know the break comes up in the OJHL, but there are a few games over Christmas, so
yeah,
we'll get to a game or two as well.
There's 8 teams actually playing between Christmas and New Year's. So there is an opportunity between Christmas and New Year's for some fans to see the team anyway.
Yeah, we'll be breaking from this from the show. So today will be our last one until I believe we're back on the 8th.
Just before the deadline.
Yeah, no, so just in time to go over stuff, and then of course we can review everything after the deadline too. But my dad's going to come over from the from Victoria this weekend for a couple of days. That'll be nice, and then I'm picking up my 93-year-old uncle and taking him up to Whistler for a family, nice little family Whistler Christmas with his daughter and her family and everyone. So it should be a fun time. Just hope we get snow and not rain, because there's a lot of rain up there right now. And for the first time in a year, I busted up my ankle last year, so I couldn't ski. So I'm looking finally forward to, I got my ski pass, getting some skiing in. So if it rains the entire time, I'm going to be PO'd. So hopefully
you can come out here. I'm pretty sure Blue Mountain has a lot of snow here in Collingwood where the Blues play. I think they got a ton of snow up there. So up north in Ontario, come home if you don't need to ski.
I hate to say this because I am an Ontario boy through and through, but once you've skied Whistler, you can't go back to Blue Mountain. You just can't do it. Although they might have a lot more snow. Although I did have many fond memories of Blue Mountain when I was a kid skiing that hill. So, but guys, we've got to wrap it up here. Thanks so much for taking the time. Great insight. We'll obviously do this again in the new year, and just happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you and the families.
Same to you, Alex, and same to everyone out there. Have a great Christmas. Have a great holiday season.
Yes, happy holidays to all the viewers and everybody associated with the OJHL, and happy holidays to yourself, Ron, and to you, Alex.
And that will do it for today's show. As mentioned, we'll be on break for the holidays, but we'll return on January 8th. A huge thank you to Ron Valentine and Alan Corkum for stopping by today. Always love having those guys on the program. Just remember that you can stay up to date with everything that's happening with the OJHL over the break by heading to the league's official social media outlets. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Wishing you and your families a very Merry Christmas and happy holiday season. I'll see you in January.